Sometimes we don't know where the road of life is going to lead us. For me, it led me to Launch Code, a place where purpose and passion collides, a place where you have an opportunity. Launch Code helped me launch a new career. It gave me that opportunity. So I want to give back. I want to be able to help a new generation of learners become developers by sharing all of my life lessons and all of my struggles and what it took for me to get to where I needed to be today. Launch Code helped me do that. Now let's go on this journey together. I'll see you there. Okay, so now we're in chapter 17 where we're going to talk about exceptions. Pay attention in this chapter because, again, we're laying another piece or adding another piece to the project, to the puzzle, to the house, however you want to look at it. We're adding some more information that's going to help reinforce the concepts that we have introduced and taught to you. So if you're new to this channel and you would like to follow along in the curriculum, it is free. The link is in the description. You don't have to register or anything like that. So let's get into it. Chapter 17, Exceptions, Learning Objectives. Upon completing all the content in this chapter, you should be able to do the following. Effectively throw and catch exceptions to improve user experience and make debugging easier. Explain what an exception is and why exceptions are used. Write a program using a try-catch block. Catch exceptions only when something meaningful can be done. Throw exceptions with clear descriptive messages. Throw exceptions only when the program cannot be properly executed in the given state. Give at least 3 examples of standard exceptions. Explain how a finally block works and when one should be used. Create negative tests to verify that the code throws exceptions when necessary. Here's the key terminologies. Inside of here, introducing exceptions to you: stack trace, error, syntax error, reference error, and type error. We've already touched on a lot of this information. Now we're just reinforcing it. Then we're going to have throws, and then exception control flow, try catch, and finally. All right, so we're going to get into this chapter. These 3 chapters, we're going all 3 of these chapters in this one class lecture, and so these are not that long, but I may have 2 videos for this chapter, but we'll see how, if I come across some information that I really need to really take my time to go over. So let's go into the introduction. Errors are a part of coding. Occasionally, we make mistakes as programmers. However, we are always trying to fix those mistakes by reading different resources, examining a list of error messages, also called the stack trace. This is why we got Stack Overflow, stack trace, or asking for help. Earlier in this course, we learned about 2 different types of errors: runtime and logic. A logic error is when your program executes without breaking, but doesn't behave the way you thought it would. These logic errors usually require you to consider how you are going about solving the issue to resolve. Runtime errors are when your program does not run correctly and an exception is raised. So you've been introduced to these exceptions. Now we're about to help you understand what they are, how they work, and why we need them. An exception is a runtime error in which a name and message are displayed to provide more information about the error. Exceptions and errors. In JavaScript, a runtime error and the exceptions are the same thing. Read it again. In JavaScript, a runtime error and exceptions are the same thing and can be used interchangeably. This can cause confusion because a logic error is not an exception. Error object. When a runtime error, also known as an exception, is raised, JavaScript returns an error object. An error object has two properties, a name and a message. Yes, there is something called an error object. You're going to get more familiar with this later on. But notice here, it has a properties, name, and message. Just like every object has properties and it has values, name and message. The name refers to the type of error that occurred, while the message gives the user information on why that exception occurred. JavaScript has built-in exceptions with predefined names and messages. However, JavaScript also gives you the ability to create your own error messages. You have undoubtedly experienced various exceptions already throughout this class. Let's look at a few common exceptions. Common exceptions. JavaScript has some built-in exceptions you may have already encountered in this class. One of the most common errors in JavaScript is the syntax error, which is known when we include symbol JavaScript is not expecting, which is thrown when we include a symbol JavaScript is not expecting. So here, console.log, you see the problem here. Think like the compiler. Read it slowly. You see the error, the problem. You should be able to start getting to the point to where you can identify some of these problems. Now, when we hit the console.log, it says syntax error, missing a closing parenthesis after argument statement. Well, it's looking for the parenthesis to be right here, right after this closing quote, because we put the parenthesis where we wanted to put it because you probably created it with the parenthesis, both open and closing parentheses. But you might make a mistake and you want to put this is in quotes, an example. But remember how to do that. If you're going to use quotes like this, you got to have still opening and closing quote. But if you wanted this to be inside quotes, you either can just use a single quote inside the double quotes, or you have to escape them. We put our second quotation mark in the incorrect place. JavaScript does not know what to do with the second half of our phrase and throws a syntax error with the message missing after argument list. So get familiar with this particular syntax error message. Notice again that it's an object because it has a property, which syntax error is the property, missing parenthesis, closing parenthesis after argument is the message. A reference error is thrown when we try to use a variable that has not yet been defined. So here we go. If we go console.log x and we're using the bracket notation 0, this lets me know I'm looking for this to do what? Find something at the index of 0 inside of this x variable or object. Problem is, it was never defined. It may be declared, but it was never defined. So when we say defined, that means it was never initialized. Let's read it. We attempt to print out the first element in the variable x, but we never declared x, right? JavaScript throws in reference error with the message x is not defined. So this can be twofold here. It could have been declared, it just didn't have something assigned to it, a value assigned to it. But in this case, because we notice that all we see is console.log and there's no variable x at all, we know that it was never even declared as well. So remember the context of how it's being said. Now, type error. This is a big one right here. You run across this a lot as well. It's thrown when JavaScript expects something to be one type, but the provided value is a different type. So that means we're not using something in the correct way. So JavaScript is telling you, yeah, we were expecting a different type, but you're using it wrong. In this, you have to go back and look at that variable and see, okay, what am I doing wrong here? But remember what it says. It's expecting something to be one type, but the provided value is of a different type. So here, we're doing const a launch code, and then we try to change it, reassign it to code. It's going to say type error, invalid assignment to const, because we know that const cannot be changed. It's immutable now. And now we're trying to reassign launch string with the code string. So you get the type error. It's letting you know, okay, we're doing it wrong. But if you don't understand the rules and the principle, it's easy to miss this because there's no variable, there's no keyword in front of a. So if you don't understand what it is, remember, you can always do a type of. You can always look at the keywords to see, okay, why is this giving me that message? In this case, we declare the constant as the string launch and then try to change the immutable variable to code. JavaScript throws a type error with the message invalid assignment to const, because remember, we're trying to reassign it. Exceptions gives us a way to provide more information on how something went wrong. JavaScript built-in exceptions are regularly used in the debugging process. There are more built-in exceptions in JavaScript. You can read more by referencing this documentation here. This is a resource. Go ahead and look at these resources, bookmark them. In the next section, we will learn how to raise our own exceptions using throw statements. All right, check your understanding. I'm going to end the video here, and then we'll pick it up in the next section. Okay, so now we're introducing helping you to understand those errors that we had taught you early on. So we're going a little bit deeper and showing you how to deal with them and how to recognize what the issues are so you can know how to fix them in your code. So that's the end of this section. Remember, the more you do, the more you improve. See you in the next section.